Hi guys, welcome to class. Today we're going to be talking about multiculturalism and immigration. It's a very hot topic, so we're going to talk about this, what the situation is like in your country, and we're going to talk about the benefits of immigration, the drawbacks of immigration, all these kind of things. We're going to be looking at a specific article about a couple of years ago. There was this Norwegian guy who killed lots of people on an island, lots of young people on an island. I don't know if you remember, so we'll talk about this story and see how it goes. So already we have Jessica in there, Yarik there, Dev there, Nombra there, cool, and Alberto. So hopefully you can all join in. There were lots, well, not lots actually, a couple of reservations. So there's still some slots for you to join in if you like to. For those of you who just started watching, who've just joined in, just tuned in, sorry, we are going to be talking about immigration and multiculturalism. Is that Roman today? It's Roman.
No, you don't guess.
No, sorry, you're hogging the computer, right? So yesterday you were saying Roman hogged the computer. Okay, how are you? You okay?
I'm well, thank you. I'm just
Perfect.
from a beach, so I'm very good.
You went to the
Well.
beach today?
Yeah.
Is it far from you?
Not exactly, about 10 minutes walking
Wow, okay, that's
to the
good.
beach.
And what are the beaches like in Ukraine? Are they sandy or are they with pebbles?
Our beach are sandy, but there are crowds of people.
Okay.
Too many people.
Yep. So they're sandy. The ones in the UK in the south where I come from are pebbly, so it's not so fun. It's not so good for sunbathing on rocks. It's not so good. But there's no sun anyway, so that's probably why they did it. Okay, Alberto, yeah?
Hello, teacher.
Good to speak with you. Anne has been to the beach today because it's 10 minutes away. You're in Spain. How far are you from the beach?
I didn't understand you.
How far do you live from the beach?
No, I'm 100 kilometers from far. I'm far away from the beach.
Okay, so you're not by the beach. What did you get up to though? What have you got up to so far this morning? Because Anne's been to the beach. Have you done anything so far? It's still early, right?
I don't know, but I don't know any kind of beach or I'm at home.
Okay, and it's still really it's in the morning
here
as well. Okay.
Yeah, it's hot here.
What is the temperature?
About 30 Celsius degrees.
Yeah, it's hot. And
not now, but in midday.
And what is it like there? Is that okay?
We have the same weather, the same temperature, about 30 degrees.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to talk about immigration today. First of all, I want to ask you what the situation is like in your country, if there are if there's a lot of immigration, and yeah, Alberto, in Spain, for example, do you see many immigrants?
Yeah, there are some immigrants in Spain, and there are many Spanish people who want to immigrate to go abroad to look for a good job or something like that, to Europe, to Germany, to Britain. There are the two cases in Spain now.
Okay, so there's immigrants that come to Spain, also leave. Like in the UK, lots of British immigrate to Spain, right? So you probably see them.
Yeah.
And Germans with their big beer bellies and okay. So yeah, and this thing, but also equally, as well as people coming to Spain, people would leave as well to Germany and things like this. Okay, that's interesting. Are you ever tempted to leave Spain?
No, not really.
Tempted?
Not really. Yeah, to try to attempt to try. Yeah, no, not really, because I'm old to go abroad for working.
Yeah.
I suppose I have a family, and it's too late for me. But well, really, I was thinking about my daughters who perhaps have to go abroad for working years. Well, in some years, but uh, well, the situation is bad in Spain. The economic situation, and I am thinking about it for me too
Mm.
in the last times, but I tried not to go abroad.
To resist the temptation, things like this. Yeah. So we
Yeah,
have an
yeah.
expression. The grass is always greener on the other side, and that means when you're in one place, you think, the situation's probably better in another place. Then when you get to a new place, you think, actually, there are some things that I miss in your home country, and maybe it's not so good. Okay, so we say the grass is always greener on the other side.
Not too seriously.
Okay. Anne, what do you say in Ukraine? Do you see many immigrants?
Actually, this topic is exactly about me because I'm a potential immigrant. We're going to go to Canada in half a year, about and a lot of people run from my country to some in other countries,
But
some
what
other
about
countries.
the other way round? Do you have many immigrants coming to Ukraine?
Mm, Actually, yes, we have some immigrants from Middle East, as you know,
I didn't
to
know.
Ukraine.
I didn't know.
Maybe some Chinese
Yeah.
people, but Ukrainians usually go away from Ukraine.
Okay, and where do they usually go? So what are popular countries?
Um, we have a great, I don't know, diaspora. Do you know this word? Do you
Diaspora?
have this word? Diaspora, something like this.
No, I'm not
A
familiar.
big group of population we have in Canada, a big group of
Did you say
Ukrainian,
yeah, an expat community maybe? Yeah, so
some community, yeah.
expats in
Expat
Canada.
community in Canada, Portugal, Spain, Italy. Yeah, it's the most popular ways to immigrate.
Usually to hot countries. Okay, and Canada. Yeah, so hot countries.
Yeah, Canada.
Okay, so this is interesting. And were you ever tempted to go somewhere else apart from Canada? So you're going to Canada because of the job, but were you looking at other places, other countries, like, for example, Spain or Italy?
No, we don't go to Canada exactly because we have a job. We take part in immigration program, and my husband got a job offer occasionally. He didn't want to. He didn't look for it.
Okay,
He
so
only was in Canada, and he received it. So we wanted to go to Canada, only to Canada, not to another country.
okay, you're lucky. So
Yeah.
so he went to Canada, and then they just said you can have a job. So too lucky.
There is special program. Every immigrant can go to some city and they live for about a week or more in this city, and they look the city, go to this some places, for example, schools, hospitals, so they know about life in this city, and more they visit some employers.
Yep.
And my husband visited one of the employers, and he get a job offer to my
And
husband.
I've heard that for to get to Canada, the process is a bit more straightforward than other countries, like America, for example. I've heard that it's more immigrant friendly. Yeah, I don't know if you found it to be more friendly as such. That's cool. Okay, Dennis, good to speak with you.
Yes. Hello, Martin.
How are
Hello,
you?
everyone.
Okay.
I'm okay, as
Perfect.
usual.
As usual, everything's perfect. Okay, Moscow. Where do the immigrants come from? I guess you have a lot of immigrants because it's the capital city. Sorry, I've
Yes,
got a towel. I'm too hot, so carry on. I might have to do
yes,
that very quickly.
usually from former Soviet Union republics, uh, from southern republics like Armenia, from eastern republics, from Asian countries, sometimes from China, from Vietnam. How about
Vietnam.
pronunciation? I'm not sure.
Yep, perfect. Vietnam.
Okay. Well, not so rich countries, of course.
Okay, and where do many people from Moscow want to leave Moscow to other countries?
Usually people move to Israel, very popular among Russians, a lot of Russian people there. Well, if you have enough money, Britain and London, because of huge amount of football clubs, I suppose.
Yes, and no British investor buys these clubs. It's always either Arabs or Russian billionaires, because basically these clubs lose money. They're not good businesses, and somehow we can convince Russian billionaires and rich Arabs to buy them, but they lose so much money. They're rubbish businesses. But anyway, Dennis, yeah. So if you're rich, you'll go to London and buy a football club.
Yeah, it's not a business. It's like a
toy.
Protection. No, even protection.
Yeah.
And US as usual, everybody goes to US.
Okay, so have you ever thought about going somewhere else?
No.
You're quite satisfied. Alberto is also quite satisfied. And
not
if you
even quite satisfied. It's not so bad, and I don't know. You have only one language, only one country when you're born, and it's just
it's at home.
it's very hard. It's very hard to move somewhere else.
Okay, so it's home, yeah. So home, you cannot replace that. But Anne, would you have looked for an opportunity to go abroad if you didn't get this offer, this job offer, or is it just circumstantial? You got the offer, and now you're going.
No, we wanted to move to immigrate to another country for several years. Firstly, we would like to go to Australia, and we also took part in special immigration program. We also got a job offer, but unfortunately, the government, migration government of Australia, didn't give some special. Just a moment. Some permission, something like that.
Okay, they didn't give you permission or permit or whatever.
Not for us, but for employer. Special permission for employer.
And did so you applied to Gibraltar? How did that go? Because I think Gibraltar is good, yeah, because of the weather, right? So how did that go? What was it like? What did you have to do?
In Australia?
Did you say Australia and Gibraltar?
Australia.
Just Australia. Okay, I thought you said Gibraltar. Okay, I misunderstood. Okay, but anyway, so okay, I'm gonna share my screen now so you can see a kind of article that we're going to follow today. This is about this guy, this Norwegian fella, who did some bad stuff and shot loads of kids, right? So I don't know if you remember him. He was Andre something or other. Okay, but first of all, there's some questions here, some more questions to follow up on this. If you had to move a country to another country, where would you go? And this would suit Dennis because Dennis doesn't want to voluntarily, but if you had to, where would you go, Dennis? If you had to leave Russia? Somewhere hot, somewhere...
No, US.
US.
Of course. It's, and not because of money, but because, I don't know, to speak in general, I really respect this country and people in this country in general. Not all people, of course, but their history, and their um,
Ideals, you could say.
yes, maybe.
Okay,
It's
so you
it's a big word, but yeah.
and this whole kind of maybe American dream ideal, yeah. So if you live in America, the idea is that you can achieve what you like. Yeah, this is what they constantly promote. So for you, it would fit you, not necessarily because of the climate, not because of the money, but because of the ideals, the mentality. Yeah, so it would suit your mentality. Alberto, what about you if you had to go abroad?
Well, I have a theory and I put it in the chat box. I think if you have to move abroad, you have to go to a poorer country than yours. Not any country. It has to be secure and has to have some stability, political stability or money stability, but it would be emergency country or something like that, like
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 the BRIC
like a
countries, right?
brick, like
Yeah, Brazil, Russia, India,
yeah,
China, South Africa. No.
emerging country, or what is the
So developing
right
countries or
word?
I would say emerging is better than developing because
But
most
not
countries already
not to
developed.
a I don't move. I wouldn't move to a developed country, to the US, to Britain, to Germany, because I think all the cases here in Berlin, the most of the students have studies, have degrees, but they can't work in these countries as his studies demand.
Yeah.
They could work for a low salary in bad working conditions, for washing, for working in a
Especially so in
restaurant.
London, that's usually what
It's,
happens, right?
I think it's too hard, but it's the right thing. And then I'd go to Central America, not any country, but to Costa Rica, to the South America country, to Colombia, for example, who is more stable than in years, for to Brazil, to Chile, to well, they speak Spanish too, and then
And it's
I
convenient, right?
have yeah,
Okay,
it's
and
easier for me.
and okay, so you go also maybe because your money will go further there, right? So if you're saying when you say a country that's not as rich as your country, do you mean as in the people's salaries or as in the
Yeah,
overall economy?
for yeah, the generally economy, the country economy.
So that yeah,
Because they need these countries, these emerging countries need people who works hard, but who know several things, and the students, the people who have a degree in our countries can help us, can help them,
yeah.
and then if they need you, they catch you as a degree, not
Sure.
not in a low salary, in a low working.
Okay,
So
so you're
perhaps
saying
I'm wrong, but it's my idea.
so you're saying if you go to a country which is seen to be economically not as privileged as your country, then you can get more opportunities in that country with your education.
Perhaps, yeah,
Okay,
I
that's
think
interesting.
so.
What do you say to this, Anne?
Or what exactly?
Uh, to what Alberto said, is that if you're looking for a country to go to, it's better to go to a country which is not so economically developed as your own country.
It's interesting. If I live in the, for example, poorest country in the world, where could I
Well, yeah, that's fine. Okay, that's a point.
Inhabited island.
Okay, that's a point. But is there any logic to this argument? Can you understand where it's come from? Yeah. So, what would you say?
I think if Alberto lives in, for example, in Moldova, in another very poor country, I think he would have another point of view to the situation, because to look more poorer, the poorest country for living, I don't think that it's a good idea.
Okay, so it depends also which country you're from, right, and your situation.
Yeah.
But not any country, and the new country should have some conditions.
Meet some requirements. Okay,
Yeah,
so
you can go to any country. It's poorer than me, than mine. I go. No.
And
usually, poor country don't have any opportunities to development of some business.
Yeah. That's
Some
the
skills.
point.
it depends if you're if you're talking about retiring, for example. This is something that maybe lots of people in Western countries want to do. They want to go to some maybe like Thailand or something like this, because they can sell their house and they can live very well. So things like it depends on what stage you're like. But if you're talking about getting a job, it depends on also what the economy is there. But Dennis, what would you say to this?
Well, yes, it depends on language also. Because if you are from Spain, for example, you can choose among another Spanish-speaking countries.
Yeah.
Or if to speak about English.
Or Russian even.
Yes, but it's just people speak Russian even in former Soviet Union republics. Maybe, as I said already, in Israel, there is a lot of people speaking Russian, and because of this reason, maybe it's a very popular place to immigrate. But it's not so good. I think it's not so good to immigrate in these republics.
Okay.
So yes, of course, it's a question of money in general, and that's good. But I don't know. It depends on your profession, on everything, and on what you want.
Your personal goals. So if your goal, for example, and it could be this, Alberto. Yeah. So if you think that you would feel more valuable helping, so contributing in some way to a developing country, maybe by volunteering or something like this, or by doing something that's considered worthwhile, that's your aim, then it works. But for careers and stuff like this, it depends on the economy, I guess, right? So it's interesting. Okay, so next question.
How about
sorry.
How about Britain? Where British people prefer to immigrate?
Australia is very popular, again because of the language, because of the weather, and also the economy in Australia is very nice. Yeah, so it's good money, good jobs. Australia is one that probably, if you asked a lot of British people, they'd say, yeah, I dream of going to Australia. And also it depends. Yeah, so a lot of people be happy to stay in Britain through their working lives, but when they retire, they want to go somewhere like Spain or Italy, like get some kind of small villa in Tuscany or whatever, or go to Thailand, or just retire somewhere different. But America, some would go to America, yeah, why not? But generally, I would say most people, if they're wanting to go to another English-speaking country, it would be Australia, I think. And that's probably the most popular one. Because the weather's so good, and it's also the other side of the world, so you don't have to speak, for example, with your mother-in-law so often. So maybe that's a motivation. But again, we have lots of immigrants from every part of the world, I'd say, yeah? So it's very multicultural. So it's both ways. Okay, so, where would you go? Okay, this is a good question. Dennis, if you were British, or American, where would you immigrate to? If you had to immigrate,
In Europe,
you'd stay within Europe.
yes, it's very hard to live in absolutely another culture like in China, for example. It's just impossible. I have several friends who work in China for several months. They live in China for several months, uh, 2 or 3 months, and it's very hard to them because of everything, even because of food, because of tradition, because of language. Yes, of course. I don't know. You should you have to live in similar cultures, similar to yours,
Sure.
just to understand people better. Because sometimes they just don't understand Chinese people. Just don't understand
Mentality, right? So it's not just about the language,
everything.
it's
Just
how.
absolutely everything, and it's a problem because if you don't understand, you always have a problem. If you have a problem, you start treating these people is not the good terms, yeah, and you
Yeah.
always
Culture shock.
on pressure, something like this.
So culture shock, and they say that there's, for the first 3 months or something, everything's good. You see the country, your new country is a wonderful place. Then after 3 months, it starts to get worse. Then you start to feel resentful about the culture. And I'm interested, and you probably won't need any Verbalin classes when you're in Canada, but it'll be interesting to hear if you have this, if you experience this culture shock, because I've heard from several people that they have. So when they go to a new country, first 3 months is hunky dory, they're very excited. After 3 months or so, they start to not like it so much. Then after a few months after that, they start to resent the culture, meaning start to even hate the people there in the new culture, or hate the food, or start thinking really negatively. Then that will go for a couple of months. Then after a while, they get back used to it. They say there's a theory with this, and it's a culture shock. So I don't know if you would experience this, and if anyone has experienced it. I didn't. So I was in Germany for a year. I didn't experience this to a bit major extent, but I would say there were patterns, right? So for the first couple of months, I did really have a great time. After a couple of months, I started missing home a lot and started thinking, oh, why don't they do it like in London, or why is it not like that, right? So I had this, and then after at the end, I started to really like it. So I had that, but not to an extreme extent where I started to hate things. Yeah, but sometimes they say if you go to a new culture for a while, and maybe German culture is not hugely different, right? It's still in Europe. I think they think differently to us, but it's still not so far. It's not like going to China, for example, maybe. Okay. Anyway, next question. Actually, Anne, have you ever experienced culture shock? You've been on
Yeah.
holiday to several places. I don't know if you've spent an extended time anywhere. Have you ever experienced this culture shock? Where you just
Yeah,
resent
I've
the
experienced
culture?
culture shock in India. Honestly saying, I read a lot of information about the situation in India. I saw movies. I spoke with people who have been there. But when I saw in my eyes the India real life, I was really shocked. For about a week, I was in culture shock.
Okay. And when you got back, did you recover from the culture, or are you still thinking about it?
No, I was in different places, and I understood that I would have a cultural shock again only in some places, not not on in all India.
Yeah.
No
Okay.
places.
So only certain places, right? So that's
Yeah,
interesting.
and my sister lived and worked in China for 3 years, and I really know what is culture shock.
Okay, so definitely probably comparing Asia and Europe, Asian people probably have culture shock when they go to European, because it is, I think these two continents are very different. It's interesting. Okay, so where did your ancestors come from? Most British people have foreign ancestors, right? Because of history or whatever. There's very few pure British people, I would say. But I don't know what the story is in your country. Do you have any foreign ancestors, Alberto, or are you pure Spanish?
Sorry, could you repeat, please?
Are you what we would call pure Spanish, or do you
Ah,
have foreign ancestors?
no, I don't know. I think it's a shame. It's uh, it's the same for me. The same
Okay,
for me.
but as you know, as far as you're aware, there's no sort of great grandfather that came from a different country or whatever. Not as far as you're
My
aware.
no, no.
Interesting. Anne, are you aware of any?
I'm a mix of Ukrainian and Russian only. My mother is Russian, father is Ukrainian, and they have ancestors only in their countries. So in
Okay,
Ukrainian and in Russian.
that's interesting. Dennis, what about you?
I'm poor, pure, I'm sorry, Russian. Yes, I have some relatives in the US, but I don't know. I know nothing about foreign ancestors. But you know, Martin, there is a theory if to speak about genetics.
Mm.
Uh, uh, I've read an article about genetic ancestors in Europe, and 1,000 years ago, all people in Europe were related to each other. So 1,000 years ago, we had relatives in Europe, Martin, with you, for example.
So everyone was connected in some way. That's interesting. In my family, I only know of one thing. My grandfather's mother was Indian, full Indian. It was something to do with the empire. My granddad's father uh, lived in India in the empire days, and fell in love with an Indian woman, married, and then they had babies. So my granddad must be half Indian. My mum is quarter, so I don't think I'm much. Yeah, so that's something. And you hear a few stories about this with,
on
with
Martin,
the
on 30%.
me.
Yeah, on
I don't know
30%.
which part would be the
Because
Indian
you're
part.
only 70% British, so
Yeah.
30% you are
Now I
Indian.
know. Now I know. Yeah, it's the Indian blood. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so
You should pass a test. How
how
Indian
Indian am
are you?
I? Yeah, but to be honest, I think I'll pass that more because I prefer curry to British food. So maybe because I said for this test you gave me, I said that I don't drink tea. So yeah, maybe that's, I don't know, but that's interesting. Okay, so let's go to the next question, and that is, no, let's not talk about Norway as such, but we'll talk about that in a minute when we read this article because there's new words. No, let's not talk about politics. Yeah, that's interesting though. In your country, do you have ethnic areas like Chinatown, Little Italy, also areas like we have in London, somewhere where like there's a huge Indian community or an Arabic community, or whatever. Do you have these centres? So Alberto, do you have like a
Yeah.
Chinatown or Little Italy?
No, not really, because I live in Victoria and it's a small city. It has about 200,000 people, and it's not easy. But Chinese people perhaps is the people who is keeping their traditions more clearly, and they don't mix with another ethnic people. But I don't know; it's not clear here.
Okay, so that's
Perhaps
interesting.
in a city as Moscow or London or something like that is easier to see that.
So in Moscow, is it, Dennis? Yeah, is there like a Chinatown?
No, there is no Chinatown or Little Italy in Moscow. No, there is no any zoning system here, even among Russians. So there is no. Is it Martin? Is it uh, district of city? How can you
Yeah,
say?
so I'll just it's a district you can say. So it's in a district. But do you mean are you asking what Chinatown is?
No, 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 no. In general, city divided
Into districts, yeah.
consists.
Or
Okay,
borough. Well, it depends because in the UK we say boroughs. Or districts is okay. You can say districts.
okay. So there are no districts only for rich people or poor people, like in U.S. cities, in cities in the United States, for example. So one better maybe, but it's not districts only for rich people, for example. So in one apartment house, you can find people with different level of salaries.
Okay, so it's not based on like the billionaires live there or whatever. We have in London, I would say, is separated. So the rich people like the Russians would live somewhere like Knightsbridge or Mayfair. Yeah, so this is where they would be. And if you go to these places, it just is very very rich. They drive very expensive cars, but then you could drive a couple of miles down the road or a couple of kilometers down the road, and this situation is completely different. So I'd say we have also the kind of centres, the districts where the rich people live, maybe but now it's changing, of course. Lots of maybe career-minded people are going to the traditionally poor areas because the rents are cheaper, and they think, well, actually, I don't need to live in a rich place or whatever. But yeah, Chinatown.
Martin, where in London Russian people usually live?
The billionaires, or
All people in general, yeah, billionaires, for example.
well,
I suppose it's a center of London.
There. Oh God, sorry, that's a porn magazine.
What page is this?
Okay, good. So they would live somewhere like here, right? So Mayfair is a very expensive part, or Knightsbridge. This is where Harrods is. They would live somewhere like this. Yeah, this is quite an exclusive part. The property there is too expensive. But for the normal ones, they would live like everyone else. Maybe depending how much money they've got, probably like most people now want to live probably in the east because it's the most affordable part, I'd say, of London. But the east of London is also pretty cool. I like it. So it depends how much money you've got. But really, if you're rich, you want to be seen in these parts. These are where all the most expensive shops are, the big department stores, and this is where most of the Ferraris are and stuff like this, right? So the Aston Martins are big cars. But for me, if you've got money, you don't need to live in London anyway, yeah? So you can have some kind of house somewhere. I think that's better. But no, okay, yeah. Can I just ask the rest of this question?
And people with average salary, Russian people.
Well, there's no difference really between Russians or British if they're on average salary. They would choose to live. I don't think there's a specific Russian community, as in a Russian area where only the Russians live, because Chinatown is not really an area where Chinese people live. It's just an area where the Chinese businesses are. So the Chinese would live all across London. But probably someone new to London would go somewhere around here. I'd say most people go to the Docklands area. This is where the cheapest rents are, but it's kind of like an emerging part. This is where my brother used to live in London. This is near where he lives. It's quite interesting. This is actually just around the corner. They built a marina for boats, and this is right near these kind of Canary Wharf buildings. But no one has a boat. Yeah, so just here, there's never any boats, and you just think it's such a waste. They built these kind of places for yachts or whatever, but no one, no matter when I've been, just to this part, and you can walk. My brother lives maybe just behind here, and you walk through, and no one has a boat. Yes, maybe these are where the normal people go. But this is where the cheapest rents are in London, I'd say.
But Martin, and if I'm planning on living in London for several months, which district you can recommend to live?
Well,
for me as a foreigner,
I would go to. Well, it depends. The east of London is probably a bit more quieter, but it's the cheapest part, and also I think it's fairly convenient. But if you don't care about living in London, I'd live in one of the suburbs, yeah, so one of the commuter towns or whatever, and commute in, because maybe the rents are better, and also for short-term apartments in London, it's quite expensive, I think. They make a lot of money from this. But I don't know, yes, it depends how many months, it depends on your budget as well, how much you want to spend. So, for example, how much would you like to spend per month?
I don't know, just in average money,
So
an
for sure.
average level.
Actually, maybe it's possible. So, because a lot of in London, because maybe lots of foreigners come for a couple of months to learn English, or whatever. So there isn't probably a market for this, and they rent their rooms probably for a minimum of three months, and maybe you'd need £800, £900 a month for a room, for a small room, I'd say, for a short term, maybe around £800 or £900. If you go to the kind of if you don't go through an agency, if you go through an agency, it's probably more expensive. If you go to someone maybe who's lives in London and they're going away, they're going abroad for a couple of months, who just want to rent out their room, yeah, that probably is possible. But would you go to study English, or just to experience it, Dennis? Because I wouldn't recommend going to learn English. It's so expensive. Actually, I should recommend. Yeah, the Britain needs money at the moment. I will recommend. Do you know?
Yes,
for
yes.
Private tutoring in London, it's too expensive. So if you go for private tutoring with a school in London, I think probably £35 an hour or so. So this is what $50 something with a school for private tutoring. You can get probably private tutors who are not going through an agency for less money, but it's very, very expensive. In London, I would go to another town. I wouldn't go to London.
No, it's not a problem. Everybody has the internet. You can learn English via Skype, or it's not necessary to go to London or any English-speaking country. No, just to leave, just to
visit. In that case, I wouldn't recommend staying in London if you want to, because most British people don't live in London but still work in London for a reason. That's because London's very expensive, and two, the infrastructure is good enough for you to live in a small town outside of London, and still be able to get into London very easily, very quickly, and expensively. But everything's expensive anyway. So I would say live somewhere maybe like Oxford, or somewhere like a smaller city but a beautiful city, and visit London. As soon as you start living in London, unless you want specifically London experience, if you want to experience lots of things, I wouldn't recommend to anyone staying in London, because it's too expensive. The price difference, or even you could stay somewhere like Manchester, yeah, where everything's like half the price, and it's only 2 hours to London by train, and still not expensive. So it depends. If you're going for a couple of months, you're not going to want to see the sights of London for every day, right? So you can still see the sights of London, you can still experience London, not by living there and living in a cheaper part of the UK, and you get to experience more, right? I don't know, but I think too many people think of London as the first one, but there's other places. But anyway, okay, so let's go back to the point. And fudge cakes. My computer has frozen again. So let's see if it works. Oh. Okay, it's because what happened, right? I dissed London, and the British government was saying, right, we need money right now. We're gonna stop your computer. Okay, so guys, let's talk now about this Norwegian guy. Did you all hear about him? A couple of years ago, he killed lots of people. Is it cut off my Hangouts? No, it's all right. Okay, I just saw it cut off. So, did you hear about this Norwegian guy that killed lots of people a couple of years ago?
No.
No? And
Could you repeat his name?
Andrei Reklavovich. Something like maybe like it.
Yeah.
Berwick.
Perfect, I don't know. So,
yeah,
I think I said the capital of Iceland, right? Okay, so do you know why he did it?
Martin, it's a German language. You should know.
Okay, no, but the thing is, I don't know how